Hello, everyone. Welcome to the December 6th, 2022 meeting of the Waynesboro Area School District Board of Directors. If we could please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
And just for everybody to know, I'm glad to say Dr. Klein is visiting us on Zoom tonight, but Dr. Sterner-Hein will be conducting most of that aspect. Unless you want to jump in, Dr. Klein, anytime. That'd be fine. Okay, so for tonight's meeting, I think we're all here, but for the next item, just so everybody knows, there'll be a roll call vote on all three of those items that we will be voting on. Okay. So first thing we're going to be looking at tonight is the nomination for a temporary president to run the election for president and vice president for the coming year. Do we have a motion to approve a temporary president?
I move to nominate James Marvin as our temporary president to preside over this meeting initially.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mrs. Strite. Do we have anybody else nominated to be the temporary president? Okay, if not, we'll just do a roll call, please. Mrs. Kuzer, for approving Mr. Marvin to be the temporary president.
Okay.
Mrs. Strite,
Yes.
Mrs. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mrs. Miles,
Yes.
Mrs. Fortney,
Yes.
Dr. Royer,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Marvin,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harold.
Yes. Okay, so then we are turning this over for the next item then to Mr. Marvin.
Alrighty, thank you. So our next item on the agenda is the election of a board president. And so I will now open up the floor for the nomination of a board president.
Okay, Mr. Marvin, I nominate Mark Smith to serve as board president for next year.
I second that.
All right, so we have a motion made by Dr. Royer and seconded by Mrs. Harold for Mr. Mark Smith as board president. Are there any other nominations for board president? Seeing and hearing none, I will entertain a motion to close nominations for board president.
Move to close.
Second.
We will first vote on closing the nominations, and then we will do a roll call vote on voting for the board president. So we'll just do a voice call for closing nominations. So all those in favor of closing nominations, please say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? None. So next we will do a roll call vote. So this is to nominate or is to elect Mr. Mark Smith as board president for a one-year term ending with the reorganization meeting in December of 2023. So Mrs. Kuzer, if you would do a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mrs. Fortney,
Yes.
Mrs. Harold,
Yes.
Dr. Royer,
Yes.
Mrs. Strite,
Yes.
Mrs. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Miles,
Yes.
Mr. Marvin.
Yes. All righty, with that, Mr. Smith is going to be our next president of the board. We are going to move on to our next agenda item, which is the election of a vice president. And so I will open up nominations for hold on,
No, James does.
do I turn it over now?
Yes.
You're supposed to turn it over to.
All right.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm gonna be done. And I will gladly turn it over. It's what- that's what we're doing. If you would give us a minute to reseat ourselves. Mr. Mark Smith is going to now take over this portion of the meeting.
It's the presentation of the gavel, Mr. Smith.
Pass down the
There
name-
you go.
Pass down the name tag.
Oh, yeah. There's no.
Want his?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Rose. Okay, Linda's got it. She's on the ball.
I picked this up and did it.
I only used it once.
I was gonna say, I don't remember you.
In
name
several
at
years.
all.
Some people like to use them.
Okay, so hopefully you can hear me. So next is the election of board vice president. And so I'm going to open the floor for nominations for board vice president.
I nominate Mrs. Karen Harold for Board Vice President.
I second that.
Okay, so a motion was made by Ms. Sullivan and seconded by Sportney for Ms. Karen Harrell as board vice president. Motion to close nominations, or is there any other nominations that anyone? Okay. So a motion to close nominations.
I move to close nominations.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, vote yay.
Yay.
All those opposed? Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote, starting with Ms. Zimmerman.
Okay, so Dr. Royer,
Yes.
Mrs. Fortney,
Yes.
Mrs. Strike, Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mrs. Miles,
Yes.
Mrs. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Marvin,
Yes.
Mrs. Harold,
Yes.
and Mr. Smith.
Yes. Okay, so by roll call vote, Mrs. Karen Harrell is elected vice president of the board for a one-year term ending with the reorganization meeting in December 2023.
Yeah.
So, okay, moving on to the next. Let's move on to the approval of the agenda. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve for the approval of the agenda? Okay, sorry, changes. Learning, all right. All right.
I get it.
So changes to the agenda.
Well, I believe we're going to add one item, which is the approval of the job description for the soon, at some point named assistant superintendent. So where are we going to add that?
It is, I believe it is D3.
3, okay,
And there's also an executive session at the is on there. So.
okay. Any other changes, comments? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as listed?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Additional comments? So the motion is to approve the agenda with the addition of D3. Okay. So now we move to the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as written?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Any comments, thoughts, questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, so the minutes, so the motion is to approve, has been approved for the minutes for 11. I'm sorry, what is that date? 11, I'm sorry, 11/22/2022, okay? And next, we will move on to our superintendent report. Dr. Stern.
I think.
Sure. I'm waiting if Dr. Klein wanted to share anything. I just wanted to recognize that we had 3 of our educators recognized this past week as Pennsylvania Keystone Technology Innovators. Sharon McEwan from Maury, 5th grade, was nominated by Mr. Weatherall. Holly Whitmer from WAMS was nominated by Mr. DeAngelis, and Carrie Bentley was nominated by Mrs. McGuire. So all 3 of these individuals were recognized by the Pennsylvania Association of Educational Communications and Technology, and they're being invited to a summit over the course of the summer to learn more about technology. So want to thank the admin for taking the time to fill out the applications and recognize the outstanding educators that were selected. Also, I believe we'll have a more concise update at the next board meeting, but I believe Nick and the technology team and the Merlin group have been very busy over the last couple days installing, I think, 100 new Merlin devices. Pardon me?
50.
50. Okay, I apologize. So we have been very busy throughout the last couple days. And they're also going to be filming a short video on site as part of the promotion. So want to congratulate the technology committee as well as all the teachers and their willingness to take advantage of this amazing technology opportunity. At the very end of the meeting, when there's Clayton comments, I do have a new feature that I'd like to showcase is I'll have some photos up of things that have happened this past week, including the fabulous lettuce that we were able to harvest at Fairview. So
Oh, my goodness.
lettuce.
Green letters.
That's at the end. So thank you.
I can bring it up now if you'd like me to, Mrs. Dr. Sternerheim. It's up to you.
We will wait to the end for the lettuce. So.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sternheim. Let's move on to, I don't think we have any public comment tonight.
No, we do not.
No public comment tonight. Thank you. Board reports.
So yeah, policy committee, we meet December 15th at 1 o'clock. That will be our next policy committee. At that point, the new chairperson is Dr. Royer. We will be finishing dress code issues as well as looking at a few other policies, new input from PSBA. So that's pretty much all I have.
Anyone else?
Academic committee met after the last board meeting, had some discussion on both elementary math program and upcoming block scheduling that high school will do. And next meeting is January. Whatever that Wednesday is. 25th, 10:30.
And the next facilities meeting is January the 17th at the high school. And I think we may get a chance to look at the progress on the
Home ec room.
Family
ec,
consumer
yes,
science.
yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
that we're anticipating that as well.
What's the official name?
Oh, family consumer science.
Family
is a class.
consumer science.
Yeah,
Sorry, I should know that. Yeah.
Extra Water's here if anybody
Okay.
needs.
January the 17th at 5:30.
Let me double check here.
And
Yes, sir.
personnel
Yeah.
met prior to this meeting, had a good discussion.
Budget is not meeting in December. We are meeting Monday, January 9th at 5:30 here.
And so, thank you for everybody for the information. And so next up, we're going to hear from our student board representative, Riley Macy.
Guys, so first I want to give a little bit update of scholarships and a little bit on Mr. Hall. So we did just get another update to the scholarship website. I know that I'm utilizing it a lot as well as many other of our students. So the scholarship website is now a lot easier to use as long as applying, get all the information and everything being in one site, as well as going down to the counseling office to pick up like an actual like paper copy of it. We also have Mr. Hoffman pulling us, talking to us, making sure we're on the right track, meeting with all of us, seeing what we want to do, seeing if he can help in any way. Being awesome as well. So just a little bit of an update for us little seniors getting ready to, because it's coming to the first of the year when the decisions are starting to become when we're going to start to actually have to make some decisions about what to do with our future. All right. I hate being a senior sometimes. I don't like making decisions. Also, tonight is our first girls and basketball team. So we are kicking off the season. Tonight, girls are going to be home and boys are in New Oxford. And then we also hope to get for wins and a healthy, successful season. Other news, our very own Forrest Ryan did get called up again. It's his second time to get called up. So we're also rooting for him. Also, I'm a little bit of a football nerd. So if he gets called up one more time, they either have to sign him to the Colts or he does get to go to another team. Another team can pick him up. So that is exciting as well. So yeah, so he can go to another team if he wants, or they have to sign him. So that's exciting coming from our little town of Waynesboro. And then Waynesboro Wrestling is doing a pink out in memorial of breast cancer and the profit for the nonprofit. So it's really cool. They have a QR code to pick up the ordering form. So you don't actually, so there's like the QR codes all around school, and then you just put your phone up to it, take a picture, and it brings up this order form. So it's really easy. They're smart, taking notes from the wrestling team. But yeah, so then the order form comes up. And then they're all around the buildings. I know that the middle school, because I was there today, and then they're at the high school. And then our winter concerts are coming up for both middle school and high school. And our music department is working really hard on making sure everyone's prepared and getting the perfect pitch right and everything. Musical started as well. So we have all our auditions done, and now they're getting able to practice after the Nutcracker's done, which is exciting. That's this weekend. So that's exciting. And then FBLA is also getting ready to compete at the regional level. So it is unfortunately virtual this year just because we didn't have a person to run it. So our region is one of the ones doing it virtual, but we wish them luck. A lot of our members have worked really hard trying to prepare and send as many dates as possible. We're also selling merchandise. So we should have been as smart as the wrestling team with the QR code, because that is really smart. We'll know for next time. But they're also just like trying to get them out in the community so everyone has a shirt to represent Waynesboro and for sporting events and all the goodness to show that they belong to our community. And then NHS and FBLA are both in the Christmas spirit and getting out in the community with helping Rotary. They're going to be gift wrapping tomorrow and Thursday. So NHS are both helping at Hurley Auction to do some gift wrapping. Also, on a final happy peppy note, 15 days until Christmas break and 19 days until I'm a little upset. I don't have 2 minutes. I'm not counting down that much, but the days I do have, and that's everything.
Are you involved in the music department at all? Are you in chorus or band or?
I used to be, but then as I went through high school, I wanted to take other classes,
Okay.
and I didn't have room in my schedule for it. But I still have
Serious?
friends that are there behind that I support, and I'll go and support them.
Great.
Thank you.
Yep,
We
yep,
appreciate it. Yes. And the good thing about like winter sports and all these winter activities is that they happen on the inside, right?
Yes.
You don't have to bear the elements, right? So that's always a good thing. Okay, so let's move to our first action item, and that is the motion student waiver. Okay, so can we get a motion to approve the student waiver as listed?
Do you have to tell us about it or?
We discussed it during
Oh, okay.
executive session. I
Yeah,
apologize.
to approve student waiver.
So
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed?
I'm not opposed. I was just, if anything was Dr. Sternheim wanted to add to that,
Okay.
or explain to what that way.
no, normally I just say, my recommendation is to approve the student waiver as discussed in executive session,
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
but that's what a motion is.
Okay, so it was. Cindy, who seconded? Did you-
Straight.
Straight, okay, all right, thank you. So we can move on. Next item.
We didn't fully vote yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Okay. The motion carries. Move down to the next action item, that's personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. So I'd like to direct your attention to the personnel items listed in board docs. We have resignation of support staff, reassignment of support staff, change and correction of hours needed for payroll purposes, appointments of support staff, appointments of before and after school additions, including teachers, paraeducators, and also welcoming a number of student workers as paraeducators, appointments of van drivers, appointments of game personnel, appointments of support staff. Continuing then, have some additional leaves. So recommendation is to approve the personnel as listed.
So we have a motion to approve personnel as listed.
Move to approve.
Second,
Any discussion, questions?
I do have a question. And I'm sorry I did not bring this up earlier, but our student paras who are helping with the before and after school program, which I totally approve of. I think this is a great situation for them. But did we vote on that pay rate?
That is the pay rate that was advertised.
Okay.
And we have not utilized student workers as paraeducators for a number of years because we really haven't had the before and after school program, but that is essentially what was offered.
Thank you.
All right, so all those in favor?
aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you. So now we will. Next action item is the concurrent enrollment agreement with the University of Pittsburgh.
This is
Oh, I'm sorry,
superintendent.
Okay, it's not,
Refresh your screen.
Take that, Mr. Smith.
yes, go ahead. Yeah, well, that's fine. We can go to the,
Number 3.
Yeah,
Okay, so number 3
Where-
would
oh.
be
uh,
that within the board doc, you have a revised job description for the assistant superintendent. So my recommendation, or based on board input as well, is to approve this revised job description for the assistant.
we have a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, so motion carries. Pull this up, it's refreshing. Okay, so now we get to the concurrent agreement, enrollment agreement with the University of Pittsburgh. Dr. Serna,
Yes.
okay.
So what you have there is an opportunity for our learners to have the option of taking coursework through the University of Pittsburgh. Big shout out to the high school administration for working very hard to establish this agreement. Also, big shout out to Dr. Klein for really encouraging various early to college options. So we're very fortunate to be able to expand at this point with the University of Pittsburgh. So at this point, it's just an agreement that we will entertain having our students be enrolled. University of Pittsburgh, in terms of the actual details, those they're going to continue to work through them, but we're very fortunate to have this opportunity. Move to approve.
So the
Second.
motion is to approve, so. Dr. Roy,
Oh, she already seconded? Okay,
so
sorry.
she initiated the motion.
Oh, second.
Second,
Okay.
okay. Questions, comments? All those in favor?
The only comment I have real quick is, I think it's a great idea. Are we doing any other schools that we have a partnership like this? Or is this the only one?
We have one right below it.
Oh.
And we
That's
also,
right.
I mean, if I can, we currently have, oh yeah, she'll have to come to the microphone. We have various schools, but
Right.
So these are offerings within the high school,
Mhm.
taught by our teachers. So we currently have an agreement with Hagerstown Community College. And then we are expanding to Pitt and WVU. So the Pitt class is a nutrition class. It's offered through our Family Consumer Science Department. Mrs. Pipe meets the requirements to be certified as an instructor. And then I'll just mention it since I'm sitting here. WVU is going to be college algebra and trigonometry. And Mrs. Davis is going to be the teacher for those classes. Through their accreditation, she's referred to as a facilitator, but you have to be a certified teacher with a master's degree, so she meets those requirements. At the University of Pittsburgh, if the students take that class and they decide to go on to Pitt, they will waive the application fee. I believe is the same as for WVU. And WVU, if you are going there not as a mathematics major, those two courses satisfy your gen ed math requirements. Gives our students a leg up there.
Thank you.
Thank you. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay. So the motion carries to approve the concurrent. I'm sorry. Okay, all right. Moving to the next one. This is concurrent enrollment agreement with WVU. We have a motion to approve the concurrent enrollment agreement with WVU.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, so the motion carries. Next, we have our food service department charge policy. Spokesman?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. We have a food service charge policy. It's a requirement that this is approved. Have a current policy in place, but we're going to make one recommendation to change that. And that is instead of mailing the letters home when there's a balance of more than instead of sending them home with the students in grades 6 to 8, we're going to mail them home. We think that probably that's a little bit more successful. Elementary students, they go home very well with them, but that might not be the same level of success above grade 5. So we already do that for the high school. So we're going to recommend we do that also for grades 6 to 8.
So do we have a motion to approve the updates to the food service department charge policy? Okay. Comments, questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Okay. So the motion
Thank you.
carries, okay? The next action item is the McLeaf Fuels Charge Supplemental Request.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I have a couple here in a row. Last year, just as a reminder to the board, last year we had received a request from the contractors, and even though this is labeled McLeaf, that's probably my mistake. It really should be contractor fuel charge supplemental request at the end of the day, because this will apply to all the contractors. So what we did last year is, because of the very rapid rise in the fuel prices for diesel and gas, the board approved a $20,000 payment for 2 months covering, that was April and May, effectively a little bit of June with some extended school year activity, but it was a $20,000 year adjustment. The contractors had asked for an additional fuel clause, but part of our recommendation was that the subsidy, the index that we use, does adjust for inflation over the long haul. So this year, for example, our payments to them went up about approximately 7%, because that was what the inflation indicator was. Next year, based on the CPI right now, they'll set that rate after December. We would anticipate another 7% increase for next year, so 23-24 school year. So we're putting those numbers, of course, that number's in the current budget, and we're putting that number into the future budget as well. So certainly the indices will kind of catch up for these fuel price increases in the long haul. That's the concept and design of the index. But because those prices are still rather high, they did come to us back in the summer and asked, can we look at this again this year if the prices remain high this year? And sure enough, they came back to me in November and said, the prices are still high. We're like, yes, we agree. The prices are still high. So what we were recommending is a $25,000. This covers effectively, let's call it period to date, but it's a one-time adjustment. It would be applied to all 4 contractors. We do that based on a prorated basis on how much we're paying them today. Anyway, and what we could do is go ahead and use that. Really, it's to kind of offset their rapid increases in fuel. There are some other options out there, and again, I don't think any of the contractors have went down this path, but others and other contractors and other districts do. And that is, they could buy tanks and we could buy fuel at a discounted rate and have the fuel delivered there. So again, if they wanted to do that as a long-term option, that option does exist. They, at this point, have not chosen to go down that path, but that does exist out there as well. And I know some of our municipalities and such, they'll buy fuel, on a contractual basis long-term, and it helps resolve some issues and helps deal with these fluctuations a little bit. So anyway, our recommendation was to do this one-time $25,000 adjustment, hoping that the fuel prices will come down in conjunction with the index, which is going to keep going up.
So we have a motion to approve a one-time $25,000 fuel adjustment paid to 4 transportation contractors on a prorated basis. We have a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
25,000 to each?
No, in total,
25,000 for
Correct, in total for all four. So the total cost would be $25,000, right?
Do you know, Eric, the last time just heard
Mhm.
rumor that Chambersburg did not do that? Do you
I
know
don't
that?
know what they did last time. I did not check on that. I don't know off the top. I don't have the answer to that question for you. So I know every district does certainly have their own agreements and in place. Some districts have some that are more in-house. I think Chambersburg has a little bit in-house, but not much. Most of it is outsourced.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, those in favor?
I,
Oppose? Okay, so the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holzman.
Thank you.
Next, Wash's Family Consumer Sciences Classroom Electrical Power Plant bid. Mr. Holzman.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. So this is for the new Family Consumer Science classroom at the high school. What it is really this item and the next two items, they're all referencing that same room. What we did is we broke the bid apart a little bit because it made more sense. Instead of having a general contractor that you're going to pay a markup to, we're basically, the district's kind of acting as the general contractor. Mr. Adams is very comfortable with this process. It's saving us some money because we are breaking it up. Normally, if you gave this to one general contractor, they're going to go out and get the bids to use their markup on top of each one of these, and then you'd be paying a higher rate at the end of the day. So breaking this out did help us out a little bit. So the first item on here is for the electrical power plant grid. This is to run the wiring. Part of the reason why this is a little bit more expensive is that we had to actually put metering in order to meet the building code requirements. We had to actually meter the electrical use in the building and as well as where we would pull power for this room. And so we do have to run the some additional lines down through the building to get to this spot here to handle the additional. This is for stoves and refrigerators predominantly. So that's the reason why we have the additional cost there.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the electrical power plant bid to Euler Electric Inc. at a cost not to exceed $23,980?
Move to approve.
second,
Questions, comments?
Quick question, Mr. Adams is happy with this bid and this contractor?
He is, yeah, he's very familiar with the contractor. Yes. Yep. And he's very
Just
comfortable.
FYI, he
Yeah.
did the entire electrical for the expansion of the high school, for the renovation of the high school.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor?
I,
Oppose?
Thank you.
Next, we move on to Wash's Family Consumer Sciences Classroom Framing and Drywall.
Plumbing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, plumbing, I'm sorry. Okay. I skipped right over to plumbing. Okay, so Mr. Holzman.
Thank you very much, sir. So same room, different part of the project. This is for all the plumbing that has to be done into that room. This is again running water lines and drain lines and such. We're going to end up buying the sinks ourselves to save a little bit of money there as well in that part of the project. But Martz is going ahead and put in a bid here that we find is acceptable. We're familiar with Martz. And again, we're recommending for approval of that.
Okay. Motion to approve the plumbing bid to Mark's Plumbing, Heating and Air Conditioning at a cost of $18,905.
To approve.
Second.
Okay, questions, comments?
Quick question, the last one said not to exceed, whereas this one says 18,925.
Sure.
Are we expected to come in at that?
We are. So good question. So in some subsequent talks with the electrician, it was felt there might be some items that the district could possibly purchase and so reduce our cost from a supply perspective. We may try to do the same thing here with the plumber. I'm not sure those conversations have happened yet with the plumbing company,
Okay.
but that's why we put the not to exceed. So good catch. Thank you. So yes, you're correct. This is the actual bid with all the supply. So it would not be above that number unless there was obviously some very unforeseen event. But again, we don't have any expectations for that with this project.
Perfect, thank
Good
you.
question. No, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor?
I,
Oppose? Okay, so motion carries.
Thank you.
Now we get down to the framing and drywall.
Thank you very much, sir. So this is the other piece here. This is for the framing and drywall. We have some areas we have to build out and expand. What this does is it provides the framing to put the electrical and plumbing behind it on the existing walls. It also allows some build out for some cabinets that will be coming at some point here. We haven't got quite through the cabinet part of this process yet, but that's the next step. But we actually received more than one bid on this one here as well. And we're recommending Hess Custom Buildings at $9,050 for this.
Okay, so a motion to approve,
Move to approve.
Second,
questions, comments?
Don't we do any of this anymore? Contract all this out?
We contract a good bit out. We try to do what we can. I mean, we certainly have some work we're going to do. For example, in the art room at the middle school, we're going to be doing some sink installs ourselves, some smaller project things, moving some,
Walls.
not too easily. I mean, we can, but by the time we get the resources in place and the equipment in place and do it, and there's always some other item that really needs attention, from a repair perspective.
Okay,
have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to recall when we decided to do this room, I recall a document that we were looking at the total cost of this room being quite a bit less than it is.
19,000.
Because these three items alone are 51,900. So what are we looking at this one classroom is going to cost us?
Sure. So I've been keeping track. So I think that was a question that had come up. So with these items right now, the cost is $72,000 for the room. Now, I don't have cabinets yet in the room and I don't have the engineering cost yet. But those
So
will
it's
be
going to be over 100,000.
we're hoping for maybe close to that or under that, but yeah, it could be closer to that. No. So that includes the new equipment, that includes refrigerators, the stoves, and that includes all the new equipment as well. So there's a lot of, I don't want to say permanent equipment, but a lot of equipment such as mixers and things of that nature that are a part of that new equipment price.
I'm just, going to state a concern that I have a concern. I'm not stating that I don't support the project. Do you know what I mean, or that?
Sure.
But I mean, this has happened with the previous thing a few years ago, where we exceeded what we thought we were going to. I mean, it's a big gap between 100,000 and 17,000. I just would hope that we could maybe be a little closer in future projects.
I'm saying 17. That could have been the appliance. We saw,
Yeah.
I know we saw 17, so. The appliances.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I misled you.
I remember an estimate of like $40,000 to $50,000 if that rings a bell. So certainly we're above that. I think, again, I think the problem that we just don't anticipate as well as we really should, and that is anytime we touch these buildings for anything anymore, the building codes really take over. You really have to bring an engineer in, and no matter what you're doing to a building, it just becomes, in my mind, more expensive than what anyone would ever imagine.
Well, I don't think any of us believed it was going to be 30,000. So I mean, I'll go on
Right.
record that none of us thought that was going to happen.
Yeah. And we
So-
ran into this situation when we did the early learning
Mhm.
center side of the high school. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what you just said.
Yeah, I thought you said 30. I'm sorry.
No, I said,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody, I know I didn't believe it was going to cost what was originally quoted. We thought it was going to be more. I just didn't think it was going to be quite
So
this much more.
can this money, I don't suppose we can get ESSER money for this. At least the.
I mean, we could look at it. I mean, we certainly are using some ESSER funds for things that we were going to use local funds for anyway. So if you think about it from that perspective, we do have capital funds. It doesn't have to come from the direct general budget itself. So we have put fund balance aside so we could use that assigned fund balance for capital projects because this is a capital project at the end of the day.
And this will be finished for a second semester? Is that what we're still looking at?
Yes, that's the goal. Yes, ma'am. We're nervous too. Trust me. If I had to guess at this point, based on what I'm hearing from the contractors, from Mr. Adams, I think cabinets will be the one thing that we might not have in place at that point, just because they have a little bit of a longer lead time. We're still trying to get those in place from a bid perspective, but we don't anticipate any problems at this point with the other work. And again, we do have that nice Christmas break, which is hopefully helpful.
Great job.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, so the motion carries. Next action item is the Republic Waste Addendum. Is that? Snowsmith?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, hopefully the last one for a little bit. So Republic Waste is our trash and recycling company. They're our vendor that does this. We do bid this out every couple of years. They were the winning bid. The unfortunate part, I guess, is a few months ago, they started receiving an additional surcharge from where they take their landfill items. So it really, in a sense, is kind of out of their control. I mean, this is something that they did not foresee as part of their bid process. The good news is that there was no real fuel escalation from their perspective. So the fact that the fuel prices themselves went up, they're not trying to charge us because fuel prices went up. They're charging us because where they take their items at the landfill is increasing it, calling it a surcharge on their end. So they did provide documentation for us to look through. We reviewed it with the solicitor as well. They're asking for payment of a 12% surcharge. It would cost about $4,600 for the year. It only applies to the trash. It doesn't apply to the recycling portion of their bills. We looked at this from a couple different perspectives. One is if we said, we're not going to pay that, certainly the board, we have the right to do that. Whether or not they would be able to continue to service us, that might become a questionable issue, certainly. And that, what that would look like legally could be a challenge for a while. And again, I don't want to go too much into a public meeting on something like that with contracts. But the other piece is if we went back out to rebid this part of the project, rebid our trash services, I don't know if we would be very happy to see the results of what we would get because our bid started, over a year and a half ago. So we're in year 2 of a 3-year bid cycle. So my guess is we would see prices go up even higher because of labor costs and everything else. So they've done a good job for us. We put the recommendation action in here really as an open, this was based on our solicitor's recommendation to put it in as an open percentage of the surcharge. So if the board felt that they didn't want to pay 100%, that they only wanted to pay a percentage lower than 100%, that could be put into here as part of the motion. And so to give kind of the board that that flexibility if you so desired. So I know internally we had, we'd talked about a lot of different ideas and topics. I think one of the numbers we landed on was probably 75% to pick up 75% of that $4,600. Certainly they, it would be better than nothing that they have, but it wouldn't be taking the full cost on. They would have to take that 3% as kind of out of their profit, so to speak. But yeah, I'm sorry. That's all, sir.
Any other?
Well, I also like that you have in here that they'll remove that fee from us if Waste Management stops charging them. Will we have a way to know if Waste Management stops charging?
Yeah, we can keep going back and asking for that documentation, have that documentation provided so we can
Okay,
make sure.
Because
Yeah.
they neglect to tell us.
Right. Yeah, certainly if we see fuel prices drop quickly, we'll know as a signal that we probably are, we're gonna have
Okay.
to double check, yeah.
So is there? Okay.
You may not be able to answer this question, except if I were to walk through the buildings, is recycling taking place within the classrooms? And then are our custodians also recycling things from the recycling cans?
I would say it depends, and it depends on a lot of factors. It really does.
That's an honest answer. I'm
It
sure.
does, yeah, and I
Honest, but
certainly not being flippant about it at all, but it truly does depend. One of the biggest things is if more than recycling goes into a can, typically our custodians are not going to start pulling things through
Right.
and pulling cans out of there when there's other things in there that are not so exciting to be in that can. And so then those items do get all put into the trash pile. But if probably our biggest recycling areas are cardboard across the district. That's a very easy one that we do and do well. The kitchen with their cans and such that comes out, those are something that's very easy to do because they know where it goes and they can deal with that on their side. The rest of it, though, it's much more of a challenge, Ms. Zimmerman. It really is.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I would like to see an emphasis put on all the paper.
Yeah.
That is thrown away because that should be recycled. And I believe my experience from the past was it was not happening, but our district throws away a lot of paper. And I think our students should be taught to put that in the recycling, that I just think that's
Sure.
part of environmental education.
Oh, I agree with
So
you. And again,
whatever we can do for that.
And again, our buildings are very good about putting boxes over by the major copiers that the students use to put in that discarded paper. But again, depending on the situation, it may or may not get into
Yeah.
the recycling.
And I assume Clayton Avenue is doing an absolutely beautiful job of that.
Probably not as good as we could. Certainly not. Yeah, in fact, we don't, one thing we did years ago is we took the dumpster away from here. So we actually have the trash picked up once a week by our staff and take it over to one of the other dumpsters. So from a recycling perspective, no, we're not as good here at Clayton as we could
We
be.
are working on it. We have now
Excellent.
designated 3 areas for recycling plastic. Ends, which, because I'm tired of
Plastic and
taking all my
cans.
stuff home, so we're gonna work through it.
I know.
So
And
I
then
have signs,
paper
but
also.
people
do the
put
same thing.
Kleenexes in there and then it becomes a problem, so we're working through it.
Right, but I think Clayton is where it needs to begin.
Absolutely.
Just, anyway, I
a
just
good
want to put my
question, yeah.
2 cents in that
Yep.
I believe that's a good lesson for our kids.
I
So,
agree.
Mr. Holtzman, for our
Yes, sir.
motion, if we want to do a percentage of the surcharge, we would just say what that percentage is in that blank.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We need to decide that now.
We do. Yeah, we
Okay.
probably do. And again, if you were looking for a recommendation, I would recommend 75%, but obviously the board is welcome to use whatever percentage you want and that.
I would move that we do it at the 75% of the surcharge. And if there's a second, I'll speak to why.
I'll second.
And my reasoning why is that one, this is an unexpected surcharge to an existing contract in force. And the second reason, this also gives them some skin in the game that they want once the surcharge goes away, then, you know, they'll stop paying that as well. So I don't want this just to be a pass-through surcharge on an existing contract. I think, you know, this is, well, unexpected for them, it's also unexpected for us, sort of thing. So.
So the motion that was approved and seconded was to approve the addendum number 1 to the garbage trash removal service agreement between the Waynesboro Area School District and Republic Services at 75% of the surcharge. All those in favor?
And including the stipulation that if it gets removed, won't have to pay it anymore.
That's correct. Yeah, we actually have an addendum contract.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, so.
Thank you.
Carries. Next, LIU Board Representative, Ms. Harrell?
That is simply, they do their representatives at a different time than all the other boards, I think. So, Mr. Smith. Past year. As
I
Second.
second.
Okay. Any discussion? Anyone want to step forward?
I think Mr. Smith will do an excellent job representing us at this board.
Okay, all right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carries. Next to purchase orders and bills for payment.
Yes, sir. And if it's okay with you, sometimes we do 1 and 2, but that's really up to the boards.
Yeah, that's fine.
If
We
that's
can
okay,
combine it.
okay.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So we have normal purchase orders and bills for payment here. This is for the general fund and the cafeteria. And then also we have some exonerations of, these are for old occupation and personal per capita exoneration taxes as well from JP here. So we're asking for approval of both.
Okay, there a motion?
Move to approve the financials.
Second.
Okay, questions, comments?
Does per capita tax go away? The last year, 2021 was the last we had that.
So
Or is it this
you're
year?
correct. Per capita went away, but that one went away about 7 years ago. Occupation, this was the last year for the occupation.
Oh, occupation. Okay.
Or I should say, last year was the. Last year, I apologize, last year.
last year.
Yeah, I'm getting my years confused. I apologize. So 21-22 is the last year. This year, there was no occupation tax.
Okay.
Yep, so these are all older taxes.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the purchase orders and bills for payment as listed? And the occupation and per capita exonerations made by JP Harris?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Oh,
Any other questions, comments? Okay. All those in favor?
yay.
Aye.
Oppose?
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so now we move down to Clayton cabinet comments. Dr.
So Nick, can we feature some of our photos at this point? So there's a lettuce that they've been growing at
my goodness.
Fairview Elementary. I know a number of us were at Fairview for the facilities tour. So if you want to continue, Nick, I think there's the photos as well as the Apparently they were served, the lettuce was served in hoagies today.
Nice.
And like there's a couple different photos, and then there's additional photos that are, and this is featuring Whams. Whams they were the lucky winner of the Starbucks Day. Starbucks reached out to me and offered to serve Starbucks coffee and I guess breakfast items to a building, and so they were the big winners. So they were treated to Starbucks today. And that's another photo of Fairview Elementary. That is some of the furniture that was purchased as a result of the Title I funding. So we're just showcasing, there's some more lettuce. So.
It's some.
That's some lettuce.
Wow.
That's good letter.
Yeah, so some of those photos were just shared with me yesterday. And so moving forward, if the board is in agreement, we may end the Clayton comments with some photos, because I think oftentimes you look at a photo and it's a lot better in terms of like getting a full picture as opposed to a description. So principals, get ready. It's going to be another bi-weekly responsibility, sharing out some photos. So
Nice. Very nice.
thank you. So
Thank
just
you.
want to celebrate those.
Thank you.
Yeah, we like to take pictures.
Right.
Is that what on our Chromebooks here, a YouTube watch? Is that those pictures? On here,
We have the-
Under,
under click cabinet comments, there's a
Executive content.
YouTube
There's a
link.
no,
That's something else?
so
Okay,
I was gonna say, I was
okay.
really on
I won't
fire this
click on
morning
it
if I
then.
did that. Not sure, so.
Yeah.
yeah, me too.
Okay, somebody else. The Clayton content.
Okay. So do we have any, okay, any board comments? Comments?
Actually, I neglected to say when I said that personnel met, that I do not believe we need any board approval, correct? To say that changing the bereavement policy for our support staff, that is
Right,
that
there's no actual cost to
There's no
what the
cost
recommendation of the committee was.
to this.
to approve.
And so what the committee decided was the bereavement policy for the support staff will match the teacher's contract. So their policy will be the same as that which we include in the teacher's contract. Which
Yeah.
is a slight change from their policy, their,
Right. It's the same number of days, but instead of having to take them consecutively within a very short period of time after the loss, it allows more time to be used to use those days, and allows them to be used non-consecutively. So if there's an issue that, an estate issue that might have to be dealt with 2 months later, they could use one of those days. So we're not, the committee was not recommending an increase to the existing days, just on the period of time they could use
Mhm.
those days.
Any other board comments from the board?
I got,
Go ahead.
well, I'm on Facebook quite a bit during the day, and I saw that one of the local news organizations had an article about the upcoming athletics and athletes that are anticipated to do well this year. And I only remember Jalon basketball, and Nikki Davis and somebody else for girls basketball. I mean, they're getting recognition, and I just like to see that. Also, we had two music students, instrumental students get selected for district band. Anna on clarinet and Sam on trombone. So see things on Facebook, I share them, but I think it's good to point them out here too. Oh, okay. Do you have a date for that? I think my grandson's going to be in that, but he didn't know a date. 21st. Oh. Middle school and high school. Okay.
Okay. And last, I'd like to just take a minute to express my appreciation to my fellow board members for voting me board president. It's very humbling experience, and I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can, and I feel more comfortable in this position than a year from now, because of the year and working with everyone, because everyone comes in not with some sort of political agenda, but they come with they make decisions on what's in the best interest of the students of the district. And so that's a refreshing thing. And that's something that's maybe a little bit unique around our country. So I appreciate that and appreciate your confidence. Secondly, I'd like to, on behalf of the board, show appreciation for Ms. Harrell, who has served as the board president through some perilous days and did it with grace and class. And also thank her for helping the new board members, sort of onboarding the new board members so that we were brought up to speed in a timely manner. And so we appreciate your
Thank you.
leadership,
Thank you,
Ms.
Mr.
Harrell.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, so motion to adjourn, and we will be, when we adjourn, we'll be going into executive session for personnel matter.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned.